Analysis and all of this from the defence editor of the Evening Standard, Robert Fox. Good morning to you. And it's been a really good week for Ukraine.
Yes, it has. Quite how good, we are still yet to find out, because I think that they've got bad news for the Russians. I think they've got a few more tricks in their locker. There's a very good trio that seems to be conducting this campaign in a very modern and innovative way. I was just looking at the analysis as how they got to Izyum and Kupiansk, and probably will go beyond. I think they'll go well beyond this week or next week. And it's now a period of consolidation and assessment. And looking at the scenes that you're showing now, one of the real worries is the disappeared, as usual. How many people under Russian occupation just disappeared? There was a lot of cruelty, looting, mad sort of shooting of individuals out of hand. But one of the things that is becoming a trend and not being widely reported is the Russian sympathizers, or people who might regard themselves as natural Russians, Russian speakers, fleeing from eastern Ukraine, including Crimea, back to Russia. Something is up. And this is where I think that when you get a rout, when armies break up, they go quite quickly. It's a snowball going downhill. And I think that that's the piece from all his attitude, the body language we see that Vladimir Putin isn't getting. Not a political activity this week. A lot more voices in Moscow raised against him. Let's see what happens. And of course, Russia doing the Russian forces do what they do. If they can't engage with the Ukrainians, they've been bombing the cities, including very near Zelenskyy's birthplace, where they've broken a dam and a city of...
Robert, could you explain to us, how did the Ukrainians pull this off? This is 2022. This would be a technological war. There would be huge surveillance all over the whole area. This is not like World War II, where we're relying on a few spotter planes to take film and whatever, and you have cardboard tanks, as diversions on all of this. How were the Ukrainians able to outfox, Robert Fox, the Russians on this?
Well, I bow to a senior strategist called Eamon Holmes. And you may remember we had a conversation on GBNews in February when they were moving up to Kiev and getting stuck, and how they got stuck and how they got thrown back by this brilliant general, Alexander Syrsky, who, by the way, has been directing what has been going on in Kharkiv now. And you said, oh, why can't the Russians press a button? They know what to do and get into Kiev. Well, that's how they run a war. It's a plan. It's what's called a doctrine. What have the Ukrainians been doing? And there's been some stuff in the New York Times, and they think, oh, this is terribly secret. But I've explained some of it to you on GBNews, and certainly in my column. The Ukrainians have been very shrewd over the last 8 years in reading the British and American playbook. Not necessarily in that order, but very often in that order. When they've come for training for their troops, their 10,000 troops, and will be training more, they've been asking commanders what goes right and what goes wrong in the way that you and the rest of the NATO, you, the Americans, and the Brits and the Americans on this doctrine, and it's based on a thing called Airland 2000, by the way, are way ahead. They have learnt that. I was reading the maneuver plan, the analysis yesterday of how they got in behind in going down to Izyum, going down to Kupiansk. And it's brilliant. It's feint, punch. It's like a brilliant, it's Muhammad Ali. It's brilliant boxing. But as you say, Eamon, in 21st century terms, they've got all the kit, but they know how to deceive and throw the enemy off balance and move in behind when they're not expecting. What they have done very quickly is they've understood where the Russian forces have been at their weakest.
OK, just a really quick word about the safety of President Zelenskyy. We know that he was involved in a crash. We don't yet know why that crash happened. Of course, there will be a big bounty on his head in terms of President Putin trying to take him out still, won't there?
It's amazing, actually, they're making very little of it. There was this crash in his convoy. One of the first people they picked up was the driver of the crash, rather than the crashee. Zelenskyy himself, we know, is absolutely fine. no injury at all. What was this all about? It doesn't even look like being a terrorist attack.